The morning sun had barely lifted its warm, trembling light over the edge of the plains when Calder Boone rode into Ashfall Ridge. Dust rose from his horse's hooves in slow, ghostly ribbons, drifting through the air like pieces of old memories he wished he could forget. The wooden storefronts still wore the quiet of dawn, but a knot of tension sat in the street, an uneasy circle of townsfolk whispering sharply, heads bent toward one small figure in the center. Lara Finch stood there, clutching a torn satchel, as if it held every fragile piece of her life. Her hair was windswept, her cheeks flushed from embarrassment, and her eyes, those soft, storm-gray eyes, were fixed on the ground. Ashfall Ridge had a way of sinking its teeth into anyone it decided was unworthy, and today the bite marks were fresh. She did it again, May Thatcher muttered loudly enough for half the street to hear. Caught her sneaking where she shouldn't. I told you, Lou Briggs added, shaking his head. Trouble follows, that girl like dust on dry boots. Calder stopped mid-stride, one gloved hand tightening on his horse's reins. He didn't care much for gossip, but he recognized cruelty when he heard it. His gaze drifted to Lara, and something inside him, a memory, a regret, an ache, tugged hard. Sheriff Graham McCready stood nearby, arms folded, looking less like he believed the accusations, and more like he was waiting to see which way the wind of public opinion would blow. Calder stepped forward. May clicked her tongue sharply. Boone, don't get involved. But Calder was already moving. His boots hit the wooden steps with a slow, steady rhythm. Lara finally looked up, startled, and he saw the tremor in her hands. She didn't plead, didn't defend herself. She merely shook her head and whispered, Don't do this. Her voice was thin as cracked porcelain. Calder reached out anyway. The moment his hand brushed her shoulder, the street fell silent. The whole town froze, as if he'd pulled a gun instead of offering a gesture of kindness. Lou Briggs scoffed loudly. You'll ruin yourself, Boone. Standing by her. Folks talk. Calder's jaw tightened. He had let fear of gossip guide him once. Years ago, when a starving man had asked him for help in Calder, too afraid of being tied to a drifter with a bad name, had turned him away. The drifter died that winter in a storm. Calder never forgot it, never forgave himself. He wasn't going to repeat that sin. Lara tried to pull away. Please, she said softly. People will think things. They always do. I don't want to be the reason they turn on you too. You're not the reason for anything, Calder said quietly, sliding his coat over her shaking shoulders. Let's go. He didn't raise his voice, but conviction carried through every syllable like a steady heartbeat. Lara hesitated only a moment longer before letting him guide her away, the satchel pressed tightly to her chest. Whispers flared behind them like sparks kicked up by a passing wagon wheel. May hissed. He's taken her in for inappropriate reasons. Old Jonah Pike spat tobacco into the dirt. Boone lost his mind. That girl's cursed. Calder didn't look back. Lara did, and the pain on her face was heavier than anything she carried in her hands. They reached his wagon. Calder helped her up gently, almost cautiously, as if he feared she'd shatter. Lara kept her eyes on the horizon. The wagon creaked into motion, wheels crunching over hard-packed earth. Silence stretched between them. Not uncomfortable, not cold, just fragile. The kind of silence that belonged to two people who carried too many wounds to speak freely yet. The wind was sharp, slicing through the open plain. Lara shivered under his coat. Calder noticed the way she curled inward, the way her fingers pressed against her heart, not protectively, but desperately, as if she were holding together something broken inside. You hungry? He asked quietly. She shook her head. I'm used to getting by on little. He didn't push, didn't pry, didn't question, and that, more than his kindness, was what made her breathe deeper. When the Boone Ranch came into view, its fences weathered and barns leaning slightly with age, Lara's eyes softened. A place didn't need to be grand to feel safe. It only needed to hold no judgment. Calder helped her down from the wagon and guided her inside the cabin. She paused at the threshold, overwhelmed by the warmth of the crackling fire, the neatness of the small rooms, the subtle scent of pine sap and old coffee. I'll fix your room, Calder murmured. He brought out clean blankets, set them gently on the spare bed, and stepped back, giving her space. She whispered a tiny, almost broken thank you. It drifted so softly that Calder was unsure if he heard it with his ears or with a hollow place inside his chest. That night, while she slept, he worked outside beneath the chill blue moonlight, tightening fence posts and patching gaps. Not because the ranch demanded it, but because he didn't want her to ever feel like a burden. By sunrise, the town was ablaze with outrage. Boone took her in. May protested to anyone who would listen. What kind of decent man does that? Sheriff McCready rode up to the ranch before noon. His horse snorted as he dismounted, boots crunching on frosted grass. Calder stepped off the porch, arms crossed loosely. "You know why I'm here," the sheriff said. "Let me guess," Calder replied. Town stirred up. "They're saying you're making a mistake. Big one." Calder shrugged lightly. "Let him talk." Ilara overheard from the doorway, guilt washing over her like cold rain. She backed away, whispering into her palms, "I'm destroying him." I knew this would happen. Over the next days, she tried to help around the ranch to repay him. She swept the barn, mended a rip in his shirt with clumsy but earnest stitches, fed the chickens with careful hands. Little acts of grace, easy to miss unless you were watching closely. Calder watched. He noticed the soft hum she made while working, the way she placed a tiny wildflower on the porch railing every morning, sunlit offerings to a place that had let her rest. Slowly, the house felt different, warmer, as if her presence had brushed away dust he never noticed was there. Their connection grew through gestures, not words. A cup of coffee placed in his hands with trembling fingers. A quiet smile he offered when he found her sewing by firelight. One evening, while passing him the mug, her fingers brushed his, warm and trembling. Neither pulled away. Time slowed. The world softened. Something unspoken passed between them, something delicate and new. But peace never lasts long in towns that thrive on judgment. One afternoon, as a cold wind cut across the ranch, the thunder of hooves shook the earth. A group of 5 men rode toward the house, faces twisted with anger, rifles slung carelessly at their sides. Ilara froze inside the doorway, fear hollowing her chest. "We're here for the girl," one man shouted. "She don't belong here." Calder stepped off the porch, calm but unwavering. Sheriff McCready rode up moments later, not to take Ilara, but to stand beside Calder, silent and steady. Ilara's throat tightened. She stepped outside, hands trembling. "Calder, don't do this." "I'll go. I won't let you ruin your life for someone like me." But Calder didn't look at her. He kept his eyes on the men. They warned him. "Boone, last chance. Don't do this." Ilara whispered again, voice cracking. "Please don't do this." Calder Boone took one slow step forward, then another, and he did it anyway. He placed himself fully between her and them, becoming a human shield against the world. His voice cut through the icy wind with quiet steel. "She's under my protection, under my roof, and no one touches her. No one takes her. If you want her gone, you'll have to go through me." Silence followed, thick, electric. The men looked to McCready. The sheriff slowly rested his hand on his holster, not in threat to Calder, but in warning to them. One by one, the mob's courage cracked. They turned their horses, muttering curses that dissolved into the wind. When the last hoofbeat faded, Calder let out a slow breath. Ilara fell to her knees, not from fear, but from the weight of someone finally choosing her. When Calder turned and lifted her to her feet, her eyes shone with disbelief, with gratitude, with something tender and blooming. In the days that followed, the town's judgment softened not out of kindness, but because they had finally seen a man stand for what was right. And in the quiet spaces of the Boone Ranch, something new grew between Calder and Ilara, not rushed, not declared, just lived. In time, the world forgot its anger, but she never forgot that moment, nor the way he stepped forward when everyone else stepped back. And now, if you're listening closely, friend, I'll share the truth the Old West always tried to teach us. In every town, in every life, there's someone judged before they are ever understood. And sometimes all it takes is one quiet act of courage to rewrite a person's fate. If ever you find someone standing alone in the cold, while the world whispers for you to turn away, remember Calder Boone, remember Ilara Finch, and choose grace anyway. Because grace, once given, circles back to the giver in ways the heart never forgets.